Angkor Wat is a temple complex in northwest Cambodia, located within the ancient city of Angkor, which previously used to be the capital city of the Khmer Empire. The temple was constructed about 1,000 years ago and is famous for being the largest religious structure in the world, as well as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the final part of my Southeast Asia trip, I flew to Cambodia to see this historic structure, as well as the other temples in the surrounding area. Good morning, welcome to part 7 of my Southeast Asia series. Today morning I come to you from Siem Reap in Cambodia. Now I'm only in Cambodia for one reason and one reason only, and that is to see Angkor Wat. Angkor Wat is something that's been on my bucket list for a very long time, so I'm finally happy that I'm going to go in there. The time is currently 4:50 in the morning. I am incredibly tired, but the plan is we're going to go downstairs in a hotel, get picked up by the tuk-tuk driver and make our way to Angkor Wat to see the sunrise. Hopefully it's spectacular and it's worth the lack of sleep. Just been dropped off by a tuk-tuk and walking up towards the main complex that you might be able to see in the distance over there. It is pretty pitch black at the moment, but the sun is slowly starting to rise, so hopefully we can get ourselves into a good position for sunrise. Here we are in position for sunrise. You can see it's starting to come up on the horizon. That really is beautiful. It's a shame that the lake, well, the pool I should say, is a bit low at the moment, so the temple isn't really reflecting well in it. Whilst I'm here, I may as well show you the whole Angkor Wat temple complex. So you have the main temple just over there in the distance, and then there's loads of like smaller buildings just over there. There's a little gateway at the front over there, and to the side over here there's like some small cafes and restaurants where you can like come and grab like breakfast and stuff. So yeah, that was worth coming for sunrise. Now it's time to explore the actual main temple itself. I can't lie, now that I'm a lot closer to sort of the main temple, it doesn't look as big as I thought it did. On like the photos and videos you see online, it looks humongous, but up close and personal, not as big. Just walking through the temple right now, and it feels incredible. Like, this temple is over 1,000 years old, and the fact that it's still standing in pretty good shape. Of course, there's probably been a lot of preservation that's been done to it to keep it in shape, but it's just incredible. This temple was actually at the heart of the Khmer Empire, which was a big empire back in Southeast Asia in sort of the late 9th, 10th centuries. Fun fact, Angkor Wat is just this one temple and what probably the most famous tourist attraction within Cambodia. But within this whole area, there's hundreds of different temples and buildings. This was a massive civilization, as I mentioned, and there's new buildings and structures being found all the time. So there's loads of different places to visit, loads of different temples to visit, some of which I'm going to visit later today. To visit the whole Angkor Wat archaeological area, as you probably would have guessed, you need to buy a ticket. Now, there is a ticket office that's located within Siem Reap, but if I were you, I'd just buy a ticket online. It's much easier and quicker, and you can buy it in advance. So we bought our tickets yesterday for today. For one day, for one person, it's $37. For 3 days, I believe it's $67. And then for a 7-day ticket, it's $72. So it does get cheaper if you stay here for longer. And given how many temples there are and like sort of different structures there are within this whole area, it might be worthwhile to you. But we're here for a day, so we're going to try and make the best use of it as possible. Obviously, Angkor Wat is a very old structure, and some of the sort of steps and buildings aren't in the greatest of condition. So make sure you take care when you visit. I mean, look at the steps here. Some of them are broken, some of them are quite steep. Given the large size of this whole area, it's kind of impossible to walk around it, so you need to sort of hire some sort of transport to get you around. We already sort of did a bit of research beforehand and sort of have a route in our head, so all we did was, through our hotel, we hired a tuk-tuk driver who will drive us to each temple. Through our hotel, it cost $30, and that was including getting here for sunrise. If you didn't get here for sunrise, I think it would have only been $20. I'm pretty sure if you sort of walked around the streets of Siem Reap, you'd probably be able to hire a tuk-tuk driver for a cheaper price, but $30 doesn't seem too bad to me. There are lots of official guided tours that you can purchase, which are a bit more expensive if you do come here by yourself like we've done. You also have the option of hiring a guide, so there's loads of guides that are offering our services up. I think one guy offered it to me for $15. So yeah, there's plenty of options. I definitely recommend hiring a tuk-tuk driver just to get you around. It's the cheapest one. I mean, a guide could help, but I don't think you really need a guide to go around these temples. So there's this tower that you can climb up to, which is what we're about to do. As you can see, they've installed like wooden steps to help you get up with a bit of railing. Even still, it looks a bit steep and long. And you can imagine back in the day, none of these wooden steps would have existed. You would have had to climb up the steep stone steps. And for them, it probably would have been a walk in the park, whereas you can see people, even on the wooden steps, are struggling and they're really taking the time. And this is the view from the top of the tower. It's pretty spectacular, and you get sort of a nice idea for the size of this whole temple sort of structure. There's some of the temple down here below. The temple is literally just surrounded by jungle, as are most structures around this whole area, which is probably why it was left undisturbed for many centuries. Been at the main temple for about 2 hours now, so it's time to head off and explore the other temples around this area. I can't lie, the main temple was a little bit underwhelming. Maybe I'm saying this because I'm South Asian and I've been to India a few times and I've seen the temples in India, but like temples in India which were built, like the really big ones that were built around the same time as Angkor Wat was, and they're still in active use. They seem a lot more spectacular and a lot better condition, whereas Angkor Wat seems a bit run down. I guess that adds to the history and mysticalness of the place, but yeah, it's not as spectacular as all the photos and videos made it out to be. I mean, not to say that Angkor Wat isn't incredible, it is incredible and it is majestic and it's definitely worth seeing. I just think there are other temples out there in the world that are just as majestic, if not slightly better, in my opinion. Next on our route through the Angkor Wat Archaeological Park is this majestic Bayon Temple. It's known as the Temple of Faces, and apparently there's 216 faces inscribed into the various towers here. This temple definitely feels more mysterious. There's like hidden paths and like tunnels and stuff all over the place. Feels like I'm in the middle of like an Indiana Jones movie. I'm going through some lost temple to find a special gem. According to the sign, the artwork you see on the wall over there depicts the journey of the god Shiva on his marriage to Princess Parvati. In Hinduism, Shiva is the god of destruction, which brings me on to another important point. All the temples within the Angkor archaeological area were originally constructed as Hindu temples, but then after about 50 to 100 years, they slowly transitioned into Buddhist temples as this whole area became sort of more Buddhist. I definitely prefer the Bayon Temple to the Central Temple. Whilst the Central Temple is a lot bigger and I guess a lot more famous, it felt very basic. It was just sort of very simple designs, whereas the Bayon Temple seems a lot more intricate, as I mentioned. You can see how there's so many historical structures within this space, and this is just a small fraction of the overall park. And like, whilst we don't have time today to like go through each bit in detail, I guess this is where it'd be useful to have a 3 or 7 day pass where you can go through all these individual structures and really take time to take it all in. One thing I will say is that it's currently 10 AM and we've already walked about 15,000 steps. Whilst we do have a tuk-tuk, the tuk-tuk can only get to certain places and then they'll have to park up on the side, so they'll get as close as possible before parking out. And then after that, you have to walk in between all the structures, and as you can see, these temple complexes are massive. So there's a lot of walking, there's a lot of like uneven rock, so wear a good pair of shoes or trainers, and make sure you carry lots and lots of water. So left over here, there's the Terrace of Elephants, which essentially is a massive viewing platform that stretches all the way from there, across here, all the way to the end over there. So there's a bit of conservation work going on here, so I'm going to go a little bit closer to it on this end. It's ridiculously hot here. It's only 32 degrees at the moment and it's going to get a lot hotter throughout the day. To add to insult, in the UK at the moment it's about like 2 degrees and I'm due to fly back in 2 days, so I have no idea how I'm going to deal with the change in heat. For now, I'm going to go and take some shelter in the shade before heading back to the tuk-tuk driver and getting on with the rest of my trip. Next temple on my route through the Angkor Archaeological Park is Prohm. This is the gateway into it. It's a little bit smaller and a lot further out from the other temples, so I'm hoping it's going to be a lot quieter here. You can see that Prohm Temple is in slightly worse condition compared to the other temples in the archaeological park, and that's because I was speaking to one of the guides and they were saying that the conservation fund or the conservation society that runs this whole area has limited funds, so they tend to focus their funds in preserving and looking after like the bigger temples, the ones that are more appealing to the tourists. So the ones like Ta Som are neglected a bit and sadly are in slightly worse condition. This actually looks pretty cool with the way the trees sort of intertwined with the gate. I'm guessing the tree grew afterwards and it's sort of over time like grown around the gate. As you can probably tell, it's a lot quieter at Ta Som Temple compared to the other temples. There's maybe 20 people here max, whereas at the other temples, especially at the Central Temple in the morning, there was like tens of thousands of people. Pre-COVID, apparently, there used to be like millions of visitors per year. I think well over like 7-8 million, whereas now, so I'm filming this video in mid-November, as of mid-November, there's only been 600,000 people who come to visit Angkor Wat throughout the year. I reckon if you want to come here and sort of enjoy Angkor Wat as much as possible without the crowds, you're better off coming in the next year. Ta Som definitely feels a lot more peaceful than the other temples, not only because of the lack of people here and also the small nature, but also just the fact that it's surrounded by nature. You can see like woodland right up close to the temple where it is. It's also very, very sandy around here. I feel like I've got a ton of sand in my shoes. Not entirely sure where all the sands come from. Ta Som Temple done. The next temple you guys might recognise, especially if you're a fan of Angelina Jolie. You'll see why very shortly. The next temple on our list was Ta Prohm Temple. Similar to Ta Som Temple, the vegetation has partly taken over the ruins, with the tree roots growing in between the blocks of stone. Ta Prohm Temple is commonly referred to as the Tomb Raider Temple, as parts of the 2001 film with Angelina Jolie were filmed here. So I've never actually seen Tomb Raider, but from what my tuk truck driver told me, the scene where Angelina Jolie, well I should say Lara Croft, picks up a flower and falls through the temple was filmed here, and then everything else was filmed in a studio where they reconstructed the temple. In front of us we have a sign that shows how they've conserved Ta Prohm, so you can see what it looked like pre-conservation and what it looks like now post-conservation, and yeah, it's a big difference. They've cleaned it up, they sort of reconstructed it a bit, but there's still a long way to go. One last temple to go. We are really struggling. We've been here for 9 hours in the heat, and we're very tired as well. We had to wake up at 4:30 to get to the sunrise at 5 a.m. The last temple of the day is a place called Phnom Bakheng. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but yeah, it's a temple that is on the top of a hill, so I'm gonna have to walk uphill a bit. In fact, you can see the uphill bit just behind me over there. This is the temple that closes the latest in the whole park. It closes at 7 p.m, whereas all the other temples close at 5 p.m. So if I were you and you want to make best use of your time, go to the other temples first and then come here. Apparently it has a spectacular sunset too. Just made it to Phnom Bakheng. Most of the temple is under conservation. There's a lot of work going on, there's a lot of workers around here, but it does seem like you can walk up these stairs to the top over there. The walk up to the top of this hill, to the temple, was about 50 minutes long, not too steep. Most people should be able to do it relatively easily. Anyway, I'm gonna walk up these stairs and see what it's like at the top. Made it to the top. There isn't a whole amount to see here, it's just that structure in the middle. The main thing here is the view though, look at that. You just see trees in the distance for miles and miles. It gives you sort of a bit of an understanding of what this area would look like before they've discovered all these temples. It would have just been full jungle, full forest, with the temples like hidden amongst them. I guess this is a good place to end this video, as well as my series of videos from Southeast Asia. I've had a blast of a time travelling right through Vietnam to a couple of days I've spent here in Siem Reap. Angkor Wat is a beautiful place. There's so many temples here, and even if you got like a 7-day pass, I don't think you'd have the time to visit every single little thing here. If you have enjoyed these videos and I have inspired you, make sure you subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.